The day you've been preparing for finally arrives. The kids are out of the house, building their own lives, maybe even living far away or starting families of their own. You thought you'd be ready, but now you're standing in the quiet, wondering, where do I fit in now? If you're feeling a mix of pride, sadness, excitement, and maybe even a little lost, you're not alone. Health, wellness, fitness, and everything in between. We're removing the taboo from what really matters in midlife. I'm your host, Michelle Folan, and this is Asking for a Friend. Empty nesting is a huge life shift, and while it can feel overwhelming, it's also an incredible opportunity to rediscover you. That's why I'm so excited to chat with Allie Hill, author of The Girlfriend's Guide to Empty Nesting. She's been through it herself and brings a refreshing, honest, and even humorous take on how to navigate this phase with confidence and joy. In this episode, we'll talk about redefining your identity, strengthening relationships, and embracing the freedom that comes with an empty nest. If you've been struggling with what comes next, this conversation is exactly what you need. Allie Hill, welcome to Asking for a Friend.
Thank you, Michelle. It's so great to be here.
And I have to tell you, Allie is in Hawaii right now. And I'm very jealous. She's wearing her tank top, got her little beads on, and I'm in a mock turtleneck.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you suck.
I know. Next time we do it in person. How's that?
Okay. All right. That'd be great. If I can come to Hawaii, that would be awesome. I was drawn to you on Instagram because I thought your story was so relatable and relatable to so many women. I would love for you to just tell the audience a little bit about you, and we'll dive into your personal story.
Sure. So I am a mother. I have one daughter. Her name's Izzy. She's 25. I'm married. I have a dog, hopefully a puppy on the way. And I know. Well, pray to the puppy gods.
Yeah.
And I was a journalist before being a life coach. So I grew up in Colorado and then went to college in California, started my career in California as a journalist. And I was fashion, beauty, home. I think I'm a person who's just curious and likes to ask questions. And, couple with that with decent, adequate writing skills and journalism. That was easy. When I moved back to Colorado, what was that? I always want to say that it's like 2005, but it was 1995. It's hard to do the 90s, but that just feels like a whole nother century ago.
It was a really long time ago, Allie.
I know. No one's ever heard of the 90s. I kind of had to reinvent myself just then. And it was like, okay, there's no real, sorry, Colorado, fashion in Colorado. So I'm going to have to find another career. And I did a bunch of things, but really what became my career was being a wife and then a mom. And I dove into that wholeheartedly. Like when you have one child, I'll speak from my own personal experience. I said yes to everything. I was the room mom. I was the lacrosse mom. I think that if my daughter wanted to do it, we said yes, if we could swing it, because I didn't have to be in 7 other places at the same time. So when she left in 2017 and she went to college out of state, I say she took her bags and her belongings and my heart and my purpose with her.
Oh, I know, right? So you were one of those moms.
I was.
The mom that I couldn't be because I was traveling and working. And so I was envious of you.
Oh my gosh. I was envious of you that you had something else than your whole focus devoted to your child. I'm like, I should really be doing something. I should probably be making money. But you know, it's always the grass is greener, right?
Exactly. And maybe there is a happy medium somewhere in there, but yeah, I was excited when I could work in the lunchroom one day or do playground duty. That was a big deal, when I could swing that.
Exciting.
So,
That was just a
yeah.
Wednesday for me.
Yeah, I see. Okay. So this is going to be a fun conversation, I could tell. So, this moment when Izzy goes off to school, we're like, how are you feeling? Because sometimes there's that excitement and then there's the tears and the boo-hoo.
And the boohoo. I think that I had been, what do they call it? Rehearsing for this moment, rehearsing, not tragedy. It's not a tragedy that she's going to college, but rehearsing grieving, grieving in advance, really kind of middle of her junior year, that whole senior, the year of lasts. I was practicing being sad, practicing like, oh, that's so sad. But at the same time, I was so happy and proud. And I knew like my daughter was living her best life. Like no one could get out of the house faster than my daughter, which was a little bit insulting. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, I guess she feels confident. She feels independent. I did something right, except for the part when it came to me.
Right.
So bittersweet really is the word of the day when it comes, at least for me, for that first few weeks and months. Honestly, it was, might have even been years. It took a while.
Okay. What surprised you most about this phase of life?
Okay. I think in the beginning, it was that it did take so long. I thought because right after Izzy left, like just by serendipity, a friend gave me an email about becoming a life coach, and it was Martha Beck's program. And so I did that. So 2017, I went through her program, which was a godsend to give me focus and give me structure and just gave me something to wake up in the morning for. But I thought I think it was a 6-month program. I thought, okay, I'm doing this thing and now I'm going to feel better. But it's not like I woke up and was like, oh, phew, I've got a purpose again. Got it all figured out. It wasn't that. So there was it took a little bit longer than I thought. But B, once I sort of relaxed into looking for other possibilities and other openings, I was surprised about how terrific empty nesting life could be. Once I embraced it, once I was like, this could be fun. Jim and I can pick up, if we have a puppy sitter and a house sitter, we can go wherever we want. I can try new things. It was really a mindset shift that needed to happen.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Were there unexpected joys that you had during this time?
Yeah, there were a lot of unexpected joys. I think that reconnecting, with my husband, which again, I'm not going to say that everything was like, I dream of Jeannie and I blinked and everything was like, ooh, we are hot and heavy again. Ooh, I have my purpose again. There was none of that. There was a lot of trial and error. Like, let me try this. Let me, in the coaching world, we talk about like putting a shirt on and seeing if it fits. And if it doesn't, we discard it and we don't make a big deal out of it. And we just put it back on. So I was like, wait, 2017, I think I'm going to be a life coach. Well, guess what? No, I wasn't ready to be coaching other people. I was really ready to be coaching myself and be learning other new developmental things, but I was in no shape to be helping anybody at that time. But there was still amazing. I had not focused on myself. So I think that finding other things to learn and grow, that seemed to be that was my mantra. The year of yes, like Shonda Rhimes says, but mine was all personal development. So I was like, anytime a seminar or something came up in my area, I'm like, I'm a yes. What can I get from that?
Oh, I love that though.
Yeah.
Because you weren't going to just sit at home and,
No.
cry and, text your daughter. I'm sure
Although
you
I
did.
did do
I'm
a
sure you
lot
did
of that.
plenty of that too, right?
I did a lot of that. And she had to sit me down at Parents Weekend and tell me, Mom, I love you. And it really hurts. She said it hurts her feelings to have to not take my call and not text me back. She said, I don't want to be hurting you, but it's a bit much. So is there any way you can dial it back a little? And then and it was just, I got to say to her, thank you for saying that to me. I have never done this before. You're my first and only child. And I've never done this. And we're super close. And I used to talk to you a million times a day. And now I'm retraining myself to know that it's okay to text you twice, once, wait for your call. Like what's the new way we communicate? And boy, was that a learning curve.
What advice do you have then for moms that are sending their kids off to school or sending them off to the big city to start their careers, right? Because that's the other phase that we are dealing with. Or they're getting married.
Yeah.
What are your tips on setting boundaries on communication?
I think number one, everything is have a conversation. I mean, have a conversation beforehand if you can. I often hear from my friends, my clients, certainly it was myself. They're in the middle of it. There was no beforehand conversation. It's never too late to have the conversation. But let your child or adult child know that you love them. You want to be in communication with them. You don't want to overstep. But it's important to you. I have a daughter. For me, it was safety. It was always came down to, are you okay? So we came up with a system of, it was those dreaded Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights where I would be like, even when I'm in Colorado and she's in Arizona, I would still worry, but she would just text me home, whether it was 10 p.m. or 1 a.m. or 3 a.m. And this is a tip a pro tip. Don't track your child. I mean, you can, but don't track them at 3 a.m. if you don't want an answer. Like you might not like what you're seeing. And so just don't do it. My husband did that, and he's like, why? Well, I probably shouldn't go in there. Why is she there at 3 a.m? I'm like, I just don't think you should ask questions you don't want the answers to.
Well, here's the question is, where were we at 3 a.m. when we were in college?
Exactly, Michelle. And I could certainly, I forgot to ask myself that, and certain my husband forgot that. Or he's thinking, I know exactly where I was, and it's not where I want my daughter.
No. Yeah. We don't need to talk about those stories right now because my daughters do listen to this podcast.
Do they?
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, we'll keep it PG.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to talk about the Girlfriend's Guide to Empty Nesting. Skipping breakfast or grabbing a protein bar, a salad for lunch, an okay dinner, and you wonder why you're not losing weight? Listen, I get it. You're trying to be good, but midlife metabolism doesn't work that way. Eating less isn't the answer. Eating right is. In my 6-week midlife reset, I'll show you how to fuel your body for fat loss without starving yourself. Train in a way that actually reshapes your body and finally break free from the cycle of frustration. But you have to take that first step. Doors close soon. Don't wait. Click the link in the show notes and let's get to work. All right, we're back. And you are a writer. And so did that make total sense to you at this point to write a book about your experience?
I mean, it did. I have been writing books forever. I've been writing chapters of books, whether it was a memoir, whether it was my, those mean girls in middle school. I wrote a book to you. I wrote a book to, all the ex-boyfriends. I've been writing books forever, but they were so me-centric, and I could never finish them. The minute I'd been coaching, let's say, for specifically empty nest moms for about 3 or 4 years. The minute I had the idea of writing a book for them, it just flowed. It was less about me. It has definitely my experiences, but it's also a lot of my clients' experiences, my friends. It's just, and then I did rewrite the book several times. So I wrote it I wrote it like, oh my gosh, you poor, poor mom. Oh, just let's cuddle up and cry together. I wrote it like that. And then I was like, I wouldn't want to read that. Then I wrote it like, snap out of it. Come on. I was like, that's not very kind. And then I kind of combined practical information with real, heartfelt, hopefully relatable stories and decent strategies. And I was like, that's the book that I wish I'd had.
Oh, yeah. So the title of the book is The Girlfriend's Guide to Empty Nesting. And then how did writing the book help you process your own empty nest journey?
I got to do a lot of revisiting the stories, so Izzy had been out of the house she was still in college when I was writing it. She was just probably in her senior year. And I got to go back and really think about, where was I at the beginning? Where was I when I dropped her off? What did I need right in that moment? And then kind of all the different phases. And it really helped having had, 4 years of coaching other women that I didn't want it to be the Allie show. It was very much all the girlfriends, all the women in my lives. Like, let's take this one. Let's take that one. I loved revisiting the stories, but then I had to do my first 2 readers had to be my husband and my daughter because they figured very prominently in the book, and I had to make sure they were okay with all the stories I included.
Were they okay with everything?
They were. I was really surprised. Because I didn't hold back. It's not like I, painted them in unflattering places, but I did the unvarnished truth. And most of all, who do I call out the most? Me. Because this isn't a guide to everything I did right. This is, do this. Definitely, please don't do this.
Right.
And so on and so forth.
So what do you hope readers take away from the book? Is there one message that's most important to you?
I think that, when I learned that there were 22.2 million empty nest moms right now in the world, that alone helped me go, even though you can feel super alone and alone in your process, like for me, my daughter had all these girlfriends and I had their mothers as friends, and I thought we were all in it together. But I have an only child and they still had children below. So they still had siblings to parent. I felt very alone. I felt like I didn't, like nobody had ever gone through this before. So I'm hoping that the book is a beacon of hope, of possibility. I hope it really, it can be a roadmap to creating your next chapter. But really, I just hope that somebody goes, she sees me. She gets me. I get it. Something like that.
So what advice do you give to women who are struggling with that? I think it's that loneliness, or they feel stuck because they always had something that they had to be doing, and now all of a sudden it's that thing isn't there any longer.
Yeah, I would say start small. It's almost like I was listening to another one of your podcast guests and I was like, I say the same thing. Little baby steps. It's, make a commitment to something for you to do in the morning and do it every day. And I don't care if it's having your 4 ounces of water or if it's texting your best friend. Do something, build up a little consistency, because then you're going to start trusting yourself more and you're going to be like, okay, it's also good to have a reason to get up in the morning. For me, that structure of that class, of that certification helped. But what I would say, if we're just starting from scratch and somebody comes to me, I would really talk about who they were before they had kids. What did you love?
Yeah.
What were your dreams? What were your desires? What did you do? What did you find yourself lost in? Were you a stamp collector? Were you a gardener? Were you a walker? Were you, captain of your flag football team. I don't know. You didn't become a human being the minute you were a mother. You did have years before that.
Right.
So revisit those. And then maybe none of them fit right now. Maybe those are all things that you did in your, 20s or something, or teens or 20s or 30s. But there might be some glimmers, and going forward, be open to all the possibilities. And what I mean by that, I have a story. I'm pretty sure I put it in the book, but it illustrates it perfectly. It was from a client who told me that she didn't know what to do next. She just had no idea. And as we're talking, she's telling me, she's like, but I'm getting all these postcards in the mail, and they're like brochures. They're postcards of art gallery openings. They're like really cool. And I am not an artist. And she said, but she found herself like putting them on her desk and putting them around her house because they brought her such joy. And maybe a week or two later, she was having coffee with a friend. And I think maybe she was at Starbucks, but she saw on the bulletin board, it said free watercoloring class. And it had those little tags where you pull the number down.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, I'm going to do it. And it turns out it was later that day. It was like Sunday night at 5:00. And as Sunday approached, she's like, what in the world was I thinking? I don't want to go. She made a big deal with herself. She's like, I'll just show up for 5 minutes. If I don't like it, I'll leave. She went. She took the class. She didn't know anybody in the class. She'd never watercolored before, but she stayed. And she's like, wow, I like this. We didn't talk for a couple of weeks. She said she went back every Sunday and realized that she liked to watercolor. So what that illustrates to me, oh, no pun intended, is that it's like, just be open to the breadcrumbs that life is showing you, whether it's a postcard. What's lighting you up? Pay attention to those sparks.
The other thing too, it's not just the art class, it's the community.
Yes.
Of other people that are, maybe going through something similar, right? And the other thing too, do we have to learn to be alone with ourselves a little bit?
I think so. I think that it's funny. I crave alone time, but lately I've been filling it up with social media, listening to podcasts. And I'm like, that's not really alone. That's not. So yeah, I think we would all benefit for a little alone time, because how else are you supposed to hear the messages that are coming in? I believe in messages from the universe. I don't know if that's something that resonates with your listeners, but how do we get, whether you think of it as God or the universe or your own intuition, how are you supposed to hear it if you don't make space for it?
Right.
So I agree. That's when maybe meditation or journaling or a walk or just some time to sit on the beach and think.
Yeah.
How often do we do that?
We don't. I wear I wear my red light mask because that's the only way I'm going to sit still long enough, because I'm terrible at, I can't even do yoga. It's not quick enough for me. And what I've tried to do, Allie, is I try to, when I go on walks, even though I have a podcast and I listen to other people's podcasts, sometimes I don't listen to anything. Just because I know my brain needs that time. So
absolutely. And I think, to your point, Michelle, I was listening, I listened to too many. I'm going to give Gabby Bernstein the credit for this, but I'm not sure. Going on a walk, and I do the same walk, whether it's here in Maui or in Colorado, I do basically the same walks, trying to find 5 new things. Notice 5 new things, you'd be surprised whether it's a leaf or a snowflake or a bird, 5 new things. And when you do it, you're like, it gives your brain something to focus on. And it also keeps you really present. I love it.
Oh, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Usually I'm looking, I'm like, oh, that house is for sale. And I pull up the MLS and I want to see how much it's on the market for. That's what I do when I'm on a walk.
Well, there, you noticed one. You've got one down.
I know, right? Oh, there you go. And you know what? This is sometimes a pivot point in people's lives where they want to decide whether or not do they want to go back to work? Do they want to go volunteer? How do you guide a client through that process?
Often that is something that they show up with. And I think the only way through it is through it. Is so you have to try it. If you have ideas, like often I'll get somebody who had a former career and they're like, I was a nurse. Do I want to go back to nursing? And we really try the idea on. I'm like, okay, do you want to get up at 5 a.m? Do you want to have a 12-hour shift? Do you want to? And they're like, ooh, no. I'm like, okay, so maybe a full-time nursing job isn't it? But what did you love about nursing? Was it that you loved helping? Was it that you loved the connection with the patient? But, and we really kind of we go from large to we get granular, and we really dissect what is it that really lit you up about that? How can we either recreate that or what other opportunities are out there for you now? Because does it need to be paid? Could it be volunteer? That's kind of the way we start the process.
Okay. And we talked a little bit about connection, your client that did the art class.
Yeah.
How can women do a better job at building or strengthening their friendships in midlife? Because sometimes those can kind of go by the wayside when we're really busy with kids and working or whatever we're doing.
Yes.
What do we do there?
Well, I think it's a key question because I don't think that it's covered enough. I think in the book have a chapter called Where Are Phoebe, Rachel, and Monica When You Need Them? Where'd my friends go? Because for me, my daughter's friends were my built-in friend network. But then when we weren't in sync, because they still had raising other kids, I was sort of odd girl out. And I'm like, oh, now what? Well, now is the time to kind of walk the talk. Remember when we would send our kids into preschool or to kindergarten and say, go make a friend, smile, reach out. And I'm like, okay, I guess I have to do that. But start small. I start with my Amazon delivery man. I start with Starbucks. I start at the grocery store. My daughter will tell you, I'm the most embarrassing person now to stand in line at a grocery store with, because I'll be like, oh, juicy fruit? Huh. I just strike up conversations. I didn't used to be this way, but I think I got lonely.
Yeah.
And I just craved connection. And now I sort of do it naturally. The weird thing is I'm an introvert. I also know that connection right there in the target line. It's a short-lived thing. It's going to come and it's going to end. So I think I'm practicing there. But I think if we want a meaningful connection, then we need to start with, whether it's like the woman who went and did the watercolor connection, think about your interests. Think about what you might want to do. Do you want to be part of a book club? Think about those kind of meetups and walking club. There are a million clubs. If you're not a club person, maybe reach back to your old friends and reconnect. There is nothing better than getting a text, or even better yet, and I'm terrible because I text people rather than call, a phone call from an old friend saying, hey, just thinking of you.
Oh.
Like just that's so nice. There's never once that someone says that where I go, ew. I go, what? That is so kind. Thank you so much. Let's do more of that.
This is where I think it gets hard, is that some women don't play mahjong. They don't play pickleball. They suck at tennis. They can maybe do 9 holes of golf. Maybe I'm explaining myself here.
Are you describing me right now, Michelle?
I know. No, I'm actually describing myself. So I think it's hard sometimes for women. It's like, we're talking about like finding your interests, but it's finding a group of people that don't do those things too.
Right. So I think you have to start small. I mean, I would start with what I have. So do you have sisters, sister-in-laws? Do you have old friends? Do you have people that you admired before that were in your community? Do you have, is your mother still around? Are there aunties? Like, start with your kind of built-in community first and see if reaching out to them feels good. If not, if you want to have connection, you have to be willing to put yourself out a little bit. And if you're not a group person, like if you're not a person that is interested in those sports or clubs, what about going to kind of like how I started with the personal development? What about putting yourself in the room of, you could go to Knitters Anonymous. I mean, I don't even know if there's a Knitters Anonymous, but those kinds of groups, you want to have something in common with them.
Yeah.
So, there are a million groups. You just have to find one that you're willing to put yourself in the room and start slow and give yourself that out. You only have to be there for 10 minutes.
It's like
you're not signing something, and
it's like a first date.
Yes.
We'll meet for a cup of coffee.
Yes, that's it. I mean, I think that's how you make new friends. Being in a community, what if you have a dog and you're walking that dog at the same time every day and you see that one woman that looks kind of cool, you love her leggings or something, she's out there with her dog. What if you met her for a walk date? What if you just said, hey, I see you here at 8 a.m. every day? Or what if even if you couldn't muster that because you were could potentially be setting yourself up for rejection? What if you just got up to her and you started walking and chatting? Start small. Just start.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. We haven't talked about this yet, but how can empty nesting impact a marriage or a partnership? Like, how can couples reconnect after the kids fly the nest?
Well, it's a great question, and it can go I was going to say it can go either way, but it can go many ways. Either I had a friend who said, my husband can't wait to get the girls out of college. She had 2 daughters, close in age, so that we can have, I don't know if you say sex on your podcast, but
yeah,
that. And so we can, reconnect all over the house. I'm like, wow. Wow. That's something. I think they're much younger.
Okay.
I think that what I would say, what makes more sense to me is realistically, you are looking at your partner for the first time in a long time without maybe the buffer or the glue that kept you together. Or maybe not. Maybe you were great at really prioritizing your relationship with your husband. And yes, you had kids, but you were like, this is my primary relationship. I wasn't that way. I was kid first all the way. And then when Izzy was going off to college, I was sort of like, who are you? But I actually started earlier. I did start, I think I made my husband go to couples counseling maybe when she was a senior. I thought we were going so that he could kind of come up to speed on, she's not 7 anymore. She's 17. Can we get with the program? I'm tired of shielding you from everything, your baby's growing up. It really ended up being how can we stop triangulating and how can we be on the same side of things so that when she departs to college, we are the 2 connected ones. And boy, learned a lot of things, but it's still, you're not in it till you're in it. Until she left, there were some things to do. And one of them I can, remember very vividly was just dinner time. Jim comes home from the office. I'm, figuring out dinner. And there we always sat at the kind of the counter, Jim, Izzy, myself, and there was this huge space between us. And in the beginning days, I would just sort of look at her place. And finally, Jim said, why don't we scoot closer? Why don't we sort of scoot closer? And just getting used to that. There were a lot of things that we just had to adjust for that I kept looking for the manual. Again, why I wrote the book. Not that it's the definitive manual, but it does address all those things.
Yeah, I think that can be hard on a marriage anyway, but there's also just other stuff that just an aging marriage, right? That it could probably call some things out at that point too, where we don't talk, right?
Yeah.
And if we do talk, it's always about the kids.
Yes. Yes. Well, I said to Jim, are we going to be that couple that has to bring that little box of like subject cards, to the table? And, I mean, of course I bought them and I'm like, they're sitting there, but then there's, they're, for me, they're like not super relatable. You end up finding your rhythm, but it's going to take a little bit of work. And I think when you can bring play and joy back into it, that helps with every aspect of the empty nest phase. This does not have to be the worst, most terrible chapter of your life. If you can allow for the possibility of fun and joy and expansion and growth, it can be the best.
Yeah. So if you could go back and give yourself advice, knowing what you know now, what would you say?
I'd say first, it's going to be okay. You're going to survive. It might not feel like it right now, but you will survive. And it's going to take a little while. You're going to have to try some things on, some ideas that you think are, going to be the thing, and maybe they're not. And that's just data. It's just good experience. But if you can remain open to all the possibilities and kind of be a person of yes, you're going to be amazed at how great this next chapter can be. You're going to grow more in this chapter than any other chapter of your life.
Yeah, that's nice. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. You. And maybe you'll learn to do keg stands at Parents' Weekend.
Or at least they're going to be the do's and do not do's, right?
I have never done a keg stand at Parents' Weekend. I want to just call that out.
I did see it, and I wondered if I would be that mom, because there is a part of my personality that kind of like, I want to be young. I also want to know if I could physically do it, but I just think drinking beer upside down is just not a good idea at any age.
No, it not appealing.
Yeah.
Not appealing. So, Allie, you work with clients. What does that look like? What do your programs look like?
Yeah, so I have a one-on-one program, and that is where I coach a client one-on-one. We have calls for an hour. This is something where we just someone will reach out to me and we just uncover what they're struggling with, where they want to go. And that's kind of, we do a deep dive into creating a really great next chapter for them. Otherwise, I have a Your Time to Shine program that's more of a group thing. And we do the same thing, but in more of a community and a group setting. So you're with a bunch of other empty nest moms. And there's always the book, The Girlfriend's Guide. Yeah.
The Girlfriend's Guide. And where can people find your book?
They can get it wherever books are sold. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, my website, alliehillcoaching.com.
Okay. And the book is called The Girlfriend's Guide to Empty Nesting. And I have one more question for you. What is one of your self-care non-negotiables?
I would say I have so many, but I'd say you have to move your body. Action begets action. And I don't care if it's a 5-minute walk or a dance party or some stretches, you'll feel so much better.
Yeah.
Just move your body for a little bit first thing in the morning.
Yep. I love it. Very good advice, Allie Hill. This was so much fun.
It really was.
You're delightful and engaging, and I hope people go and get the book.
Oh, I hope so too. Thank you so much, Michelle. I love being on here. I love your podcast. I think it helps so many women. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Please rate and review the show where you listen to the podcast. And did you know that Asking for a Friend is available now to listen on YouTube? You can subscribe to the podcast there as well. Your support is appreciated and it helps others find the show. Thank you.